some discordant space music for you. Sort of a emo belter kind of thing going on, wouldn't you say?
Yep, that sounds about right.
It's ThursdAGE, and our buddy Owen is he's taking the day. He's getting there. He's feeling better, but he needed another day, and we are happy to get him all healed up as fast as possible. But we have a special guest hanging out. I mean, you're not really a guest. I mean, you are a guest. I mean, you're here as a guest, and we're all guests here.
A guest on ThursdAGE. How's that?
Yeah, exactly. But your family, you are.
I hope so.
Ian Lemke. Hi, buddy.
Hello, everyone. Hey. How you doing, Troy?
I'm doing good. Hey, thanks for jumping in. I appreciate it. I am excited about what we're doing. And I was like, I have a weird idea. You're like, okay.
Pretty much. That was it.
Yeah. But so we are looking into or at other age titles. In our vast library. It's kind of amazing. You walk into, you have to get to the catacombs first, and then you walk through the maze and you try to sidestep all of the spikes and the, swinging blades and all the stuff that are set up for traps. And then you have to answer the riddle, and then these big metal doors swing open, and then you have access to the library of Green Ronin. And in that library, you're like, where are we going with this? And that's the crypt where Ian sleeps every night. No?
Pretty much.
But no, it's, if only it's not all that dramatic. We have a whole store with all kinds of good stuff in there. And so you picked a couple books to sort of check out. And what did you come up with?
Well, I went for the obvious today because, like you said, this kind of came last minute. So, yeah. But Modern Age Companion, and even Fantasy Age Bestiary.
Yeah.
So we're going.
Yeah, like those. That. So here's a question for you. There are some people, maybe they're purists, or maybe they're just grumpy, or I don't know what, but they would say, mixing up all of this stuff, wow, that's heresy. And to that you say,
I say bah humbug. No, I say, well, I think also there's a lot of folks who like to homebrew their stuff and expand things out.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of age material, since Expanse is age compatible, that you can use to do things with the game that you might not otherwise think about, or find stuff that you want, that you're like, oh, I really wanted to be able to do this, but it's not in the rules. But there's probably an age book out there that covers it.
I like that. Hey, Chucket Films gives you 4 thumbs up, so they definitely approve. So
thank you, Chucket Films.
I got to tell you, I just, every time I open this Expanse, the core book, and I just look at even the end papers, like everything about it is just so it's cool. It's
a gorgeous book.
It's gorgeous, absolutely beautiful from cover to cover. And so, what are we going to make today? Like, what's sort of our thoughts?
Well, I wasn't really going to make anything so much as just sort of jump through a number of ways, things that you can use from age to expand your game.
Gotcha.
Because there's a lot of rules material in Modern Age, and especially in the companion, that could really help you grow your Expanse game. Beyond the Ring just came out, as probably people know, and one of the things that was very exciting about that for me was the fact that you can play the game a completely different way, by being part of a colony in it, and actually making and growing a colony. And there's a lot of other stuff out there that can do very much the same kind of thing for your game.
Well, so I was giving the purists a bit of business, and they always give me the business back. And but while you're doing this, you do want to make some consideration for genre. and you want to make some.
Oh,
So
yes,
yeah.
absolutely. That everything I'm going to talk about today fits. This is all stuff that just slots right into the Expanse.
Nice. Okay.
It's not. I'm not taking it, into the realm of fantasy or superheroes or anything like that. But I'm trying. This is all material that if it was in the Expanse rulebook, you wouldn't notice that it wasn't Expanse already. So.
I gotcha. Okay, so that's good. So as we before we actually crack that open and sort of talk about that, hello to Jonesy, hello to Jose as well. My question to you is, what are the things that you consider? I mean, it must be a little sort of automagic for you as you start to kind of map genre. I mean, you've been doing tabletop, you've been designing, developing tabletop roleplay games like just right out of the of the chute, right? I mean, like, you've been doing this for some time, so it must be some reflexive kind of matching that you do when you're pattern matching when you're creating
Sure.
worlds or thinking about them. Yeah.
Well, I think the Expanse. The first thing that comes to mind is hard sci-fi. You want things that that are plausibly going to exist at some point within the next 200 years, or that sort of thing. Just mutant powers. No, though. I mean, realistically, you do have the proto-molecule. So depending on the campaign, I mean, maybe that would be something for another talk. But I mean, there probably are a lot of superpowers and such that if you wanted to go in that direction with your story, I mean, who's to say? You could have a group of player characters who are all some kind of proto-molecule experiments that were semi-successful, and they still have their intellect, but have crazy powers because of the proto-molecule.
Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, and then that makes sense. And so, what are in your head? What are some of the, I don't know, is the right word, or strictures, or sort of governance, or that little mechanism that says, nah, I'm going to pick something that looks like this, looks like that, and I'm going to not pick something like that. I mean, so as like, imagine you've kind of even in the short period of time you had to prepare, you did nonetheless laudable. We don't ever prepare that much for the regular show, so when you are looking at that, or when you were looking at them today, were you zeroed in on a certain kind of thing?
I went fairly broad.
Yeah.
Everything from alternative methods of level advancement to sort of like behind the scenes rule stuff.
Sure.
Like there's stuff about miniatures and battle maps, using miniatures in your game, to expanding out the relationships that you have with NPCs and other characters, equipment, all that kind of stuff. Just pulled a lot of stuff that I thought could be useful. So if you happen to have those books sitting around, or like I said, you're looking to, because modern age, especially in the companion, goes into a lot more gritty detail. I mean, the Expanse is very cinematic in its presentation, which personally works for me just great. But I also know that there's folks out there who want a little more fine tuning. They want to know what kind of weapon they have and exactly what it does, or that kind of thing. So for groups that want that, pulling some of the other age stuff into it can give you that.
Okay, I like it. All right. Well, without further ado, let's see what you dug up.
All right. Well, I'm just going to go through sort of an order of what the first thing I did was look at the core rule book of Modern Age, the basic rule book. And there were 3 things there that I looked at. For anyone who happens to have it, I actually indicated the page numbers here so you can follow along with what I'm looking at. Level advancement. Level advancement in the Expanse is very arbitrary by the game master, more or less determining, okay, at this point characters reach the next level, which again I like. A lot of people like that. A lot of games have gone in that direction. Instead of using experience points and such. But the Modern Age book does give a level of advancement system on page 152, 153 that actually uses experience points to determine when characters advance. So if you want something that's a little less arbitrary and you want to actually track characters advancement that way based on what obstacles they've overcome, enemies they've defeated, that sort of thing, you can do it. And you could pretty much plug and play. What's in the Modern Age book would work just fine with the Expanse, and it would take very little tinkering.
Nice.
Yep. So that was one thing.
Yeah. Give me those page numbers again.
It's 152, 153 of the core rule book. And we're actually going backwards through the book.
Gotcha. I'm cheating in that I knew a couple of the books that we were going to look at, and so I have mine sitting in my my misty hands, as it were. All right.
So yeah, I mean that's a really simple thing, but I just know some people prefer something with a little more just numbers that's telling them how they advance rather than just the game master telling them when they advance.
Right.
So it's there if you want to use it. Another section, and this is super handy, and I'll say I've used it for my adventures, which is the Adversaries in Modern Age. There's a good bit of detailed adversaries in the Expanse book, and of course, if you have the other books, the adventure books, there's you can pull stuff from those, but Modern Age Expanse, page 134 through 151. Has a bunch of different types of adversaries, so that you don't have to sit there if you're if you're doing a last minute game or pickup game, or you just don't want to spend forever statting out a bunch of NPCs. There they are. I mean,
I was going to say it's expansive, but I changed my mind. But yeah, I mean, you got a hooligan, getaway driver, you've got a guard dog, you've got dog. Yeah, that's
hackers, great. Mad scientist, which falls into the category.
Sure often. Does. Yeah, right.
Just I mean, and some of these are cult leaders, cults in the Expanse, but. Yeah, some of these are already in the core rule book, but in the Expanse book, but it gives you a lot of other options to
I like that. Yeah, that's great.
And let's go back another page, a little bit more here, and another section. And this is the one that I think I've seen other players use or other groups use, and is the weapons and equipment section, page 71 through 79. The Expanse again has a pretty basic equipment list, and it's basically pistol, rifle, that sort of thing.
Right.
And this gives you a wider array of weapons. Now you'd have to tweak a few things because the Expanse uses perception as a bonus for damage for ranged weapons. It just you can just tack that on, but it gives you things like revolvers and hunting rifles and longbows and throwing axes and just pretty much any kind of basic weapon that you would want.
Even right down to you can even then decide what if you've got a vehicle and it's a ramming vehicle, and I mean that's just
exactly. And then you have a bunch of different kinds of vehicles and such, which again the Expanse doesn't really get into vehicles. It's not because you're thinking most of your time is going to be spent in space
on a vehicle,
on a station, or maybe on a planet. But what if you go to Earth for a while? You could certainly there, in fact, in the novel series and in the novellas, there is a good bit of time spent on Earth.
What about your own? If you have your own, you built your own system, and there you might need to.
Yep. If you have like a couple colonies on a world somewhere, they're going to be having transportation back and forth, and so vehicles might become more of a big deal in your story, in your campaign. So
nice, yeah.
And just little stuff too. I mean, just adventuring gear and things like that. Which the Expanse sort of glosses over that, taking a more cinematic view. But if you want those things, there you go. And there's more in here too if you dig. But those were sort of the easy. You could just grab them and use them things that I was looking at.
I love that. So just right out of the book, you can just add them right to your flow and get it done. That's great.
Yep. So that's that one. I dug a little. Well, modern. I guess. The basic book is more comparable to the Expanse basic book, so there wasn't quite as much in there, but there's a bunch of stuff you could really mine in the Modern Age Companion. And I guess here's the part where I can't say names or anything, but there are future coming Expanse books that may be pulling a little bit from some of these things in the future.
And
so
and then kind of charting its own course, so to speak, adding its, kind of, I love it. That's
right.
And then maybe, I don't know.
I mean, that's one of the things we get to do with the expansions is sort of dive a little deeper on things and it give the players and the game masters more options. That's sort of one of my goals. Sorry, I apologize to everyone. I am. It's very hot here in Atlanta, Georgia.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. But yeah,
we're roasting.
That's right. Yeah, how you said it was how hot?
Well, it looks like we're going to have at least 14 days of 95 and above, and that's regular temperature, not heat index. There's 115 heat index yesterday. So.
Oh no! Well, again, thank you so much for agreeing to hang out with us, and
absolutely.
Yeah. And stay cool.
Grabbing water a lot.
That's right. Yeah, stay hydrated for sure. Okay, so is there any other consideration that we want to make when we're kind of rolling those things over? How easy is that then to communicate to the table? Like that what kind of consideration should you make in that regard?
That's a great question. Because with any of these things, I mean, I think communication between the game master and the players is key. And first off, as a player, certainly you don't want to show up at the table and say, "Oh, I'm using this thing out of Modern Age." You want to have a discussion with your game master first before doing that. Because even though they're compatible, your game master, your storyteller might have other ideas. So that should be a conversation. But on the other side of that too, if as a game master you want to institute something, especially like one of the things I'm about to talk about here, which could potentially affect player characters fairly significantly, you should have a conversation with your players too. And honestly, I think that should be my personal feeling on that should be a discussion amongst everybody, and everyone should agree that you're going to use this new role that's not actually part of the game. So that's how I see that. It should be something that everyone talks about, not just something that is suddenly introduced.
Yeah, you don't want to spring anything on anyone, and also it gives everyone a chance before the proper game starts to sort of wrap their mind around what that could mean, and maybe even kind of suss out any potential challenges with that, depending on other people's characters and the story. Yeah, all that,
and also removes any barriers of experience in that, like one of the players may have already played modern, or one or two of the players may have already played Modern Age, and they may well already know these new rules very well, and other players might not, or might not have access to the book yet. So you don't want to have a couple of your players just using new rules easily while the other players are sort of left behind.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So
well, that makes perfect sense. And so then any words of caution when it relates to some of this porting over or borrowing from other places or things? Or, I mean, outside of like, make sure everybody knows what's up. But, I mean, I'm not a math guy. Weights and measures, not my strong suit. Any considerations or worries in that regard?
With everything I just talked about, not really. They're pretty straightforward. I mean, that Stephen Jones just had a great comment there.
Yeah, Jonesy says, I find it handy to have a Google Doc with notes about it. Add any type of rules as reference so that everyone can refer to it moving forward. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, open, honest communication and negotiation, just like any relationship.
Right. Yeah,
I think that.
Yeah. And a continued kind of understanding that the GM is the one that's running the game, kind of the pulling the strings and all of that stuff. So you've got to come to terms with something if maybe it didn't quite work out the way that you wanted. I mean, that's kind of the way it goes.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Heat.
Yes, right.
Fried my brain there.
You're cooked. I was just, I wondered if
what did you just ask? The
yeah.
dangers of numbers and such.
Yeah,
What I just talked about, I don't really see any issues there where anything would be a danger. Again, a couple of the things from the companion, you'd want to look at, maybe even try out a little bit to make sure that that you want to use them. Because it could be detrimental to your player characters and that sort of thing if things go wrong.
Yeah.
But overall, again, that's the really nice thing, is that the age games are for the most part compatible. So as long what applies to one generally applies to the other. You would want to make sure you look it over, make sure that it works with what you're doing and doesn't contradict anything. That.
Yeah. or operate on a dependency that doesn't really exist in that book or game, or that makes sense.
Right.
I like it. Okay, so that is our modern age selections, and
from the basic book.
From the basic. Okay.
I've got the companion. The good stuff's in the companion.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
So I was talking about stuff you want to look at and consider before you do it. The first thing I looked at was alternate damage. On page 33 through 35 of the basic companion, you have the alternate damage rules, which it basically makes taking damage really takes away some of the cinematic aspect and makes it a lot grittier. Which again, some folks like, and want to know if their arm got blown off or whatnot, or they blew off their enemy's arm, more likely. But so that there are rules in here for an alternate form of taking damage. It's a little darker, a little grittier, but there are actually degrees. You can actually choose the type of thing you're doing, anything from pulpy cinematic to gritty. So you have pulpy, cinematic, and gritty are your three options that you can use. But it wouldn't really be for me for an Expanse game, but I think for people who want that a little more grittiness to their game, it's something to look at that you could do. But definitely consider it and talk about it amongst yourselves before jumping into something like that.
I like that. Jose mentions that I usually create a shared folder to keep at the camping house rule. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. Having some place where everybody can access the new rules you're going to use, I think is vital, really.
Well, there's so much.
Not everybody has access to every book.
Yeah, exactly. No, that makes a lot of sense, and it's good for the GM as well, because I mean, how often have you been like, wait a minute, what did we talk about this rule, or did we add this piece? Because there's so much going on, a lot of moving pieces. So.
And what's great is we have access to that now. Back when I used to play, when I first started gaming, we didn't have computers.
You had ravens. You had to send them out of the tower, out of the rookery, and away they went. And you wouldn't know for 3 months.
Right. Some folder would arrive in the by Raven.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Wax seal and the whole thing.
It's hard to believe that we didn't use computers when I first played D&D and such. But
is funny, yeah. No, I mean, it is it is a bit remarkable when you think about, when you look back on just how uphill both ways in the snow it really was. There's a lot that was done, and and there's often the lament of losing some of the charm and some of the sort of the pen and paper, or pencil and paper kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier now.
But I mean, even people who still play together in person, they still use Google Docs, so everybody can access rules.
That's right.
and notes and things like that, where it was all physical for us.
That's right. Yeah. It really was.
So some other things here. This I just noticed, actually. There's a whole section here on page 42, which I hadn't thought about, for flying combatants, which isn't really a big deal day to day, but if you're doing something like Beyond the Ring and the like, you may very well have flying creatures. and
Okay.
so that could be something, just some additional rules that could help a little bit.
When it's,
But
I don't, I don't have that particular book within reach. I have a massive pile of books in front of me right now, but as if I need to add the other. But when it says flying combatants, are we talking beasts and
beasts or people riding, or
or
it's more
drones
for
or
beasts, or drones could be appropriate as well. Yeah.
yeah.
If someone's piloting a drone, certainly you could use from what I'm seeing here, you could use these for that as well. But if you have beasts that are attacking, people or whatnot, flying creatures or whatnot, might be something to add a little bit of something. There's a whole section in here on miniatures and battle maps. So if you use miniatures a lot, because as everyone knows, Expanse, again, very cinematic, very theater of the mind. It does have ranges, but often it's just sort of described, and you have a vague idea how things are going. But there's actual, if you want to actually use miniatures, or this would translate to VTT as well if you're doing
That's right.
stuff on virtual tabletop, especially when you're doing virtual tabletop. It's now often nice to have something on the screen that is what's going on. So having a battle map where the player characters are and the enemies are and such could be helpful.
Well, talk to me a little bit about the considerations, or how does the gameplay change when you are using miniatures, and you're like, what are the unique considerations?
The movement gets adjusted a little bit.
Okay.
There are like basically you have sort of movement points. Whether, and there's optional rules for diagonal movement. It's sort of stuff that isn't even addressed in the core rule book. It's not, how far you move isn't, square by square. But if you're doing it square by square, there are certain things you have to take into consideration. Like I said, diagonal movement being a big one, because every game does that differently. There's some optional rules for cover and vehicle movement. What else? I'm looking here. You also have some additional stunts that make sense more when you're using a battle mat. Than a normal game. Than a theater of the mind game.
Well, I like that consideration.
Nothing's normal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I like that consideration, and it definitely is an interesting a bit of. I didn't realize that was in the book,
Right.
And so that's great.
And also like determining line of sight, how you determine line of sight. Because
sure,
all of that becomes much more clear you just sort of decide it, when you're running theater of the mind. But if you have a battle mat, you can actually, figure out, do you have line of sight here, that kind of thing.
I see. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Okay, so, I like it.
So now we get into fun. This is sort of one of my areas and one of the things that I think I've had a number of people talk to me about, and I know felt is still missing, and I'm going to say it's not going to be missing forever, is enhancements. We have a number of characters that show up. Cybernetic replacement arms are a fairly common thing, especially among belters. They lose arms and limbs a lot. And they talk about that, there's everything from, just, something that works to enhance strength and things like that. Modern Age Companion actually has some rules for different kinds of enhancements. There's some listed here, and sort of, ideas on how to create your own, including cybernetic arm is one, right here. Adrenal surge. I think we all know that is definitely a thing. Being able to get a sudden burst of energy and move super fast.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yep. And what else? Dermal armor. I don't think that was ever fully, described, but certainly makes sense within the Expanse universe. Multi-attack again. That is definitely within the realm of things. If you wanted to go crazy with proto-molecule stuff, this would be a way of doing it too. There could be, proto-molecule injections or something that do something, that give people superpowers, essentially.
Right.
Not my kind of game, but I know there's people out there that would love to do that.
Well, and that's the beautiful thing. I mean, part of this is, listening to, an industry luminary kind of share sort of how they craft some of this stuff and what they consider. But, that the beautiful thing about Age, the adventure game engine in general, is that the freedom is yours to do those things. And that's why it is, made and created in the way that it is there from just your own personal sensibilities. No one's going to say, oh, Ian said we couldn't do this. What are some things in that category that you'd say, you kind of talked about, like, superpowers and, go in that direction is not really your cup of tea. Anything else in there that you do, you just go, oh, no, I couldn't do that.
Well, yeah, I was actually about to, they're one of the big things in a lot of, cybertech stories is that is like jacking into the Matrix or what have you. And that's never really discussed at all in the Expanse, like having data jacks and that sort of thing, where you can like plug in information to your brain. Certainly, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility to do it, but if you want to, but it's not something that's part of Expanse canon. So I'd probably steer clear of that. And that's a big wedge of, cyberware is mental augmentation. I'm not sure why they decided to steer clear of that, but they did. I mean, I guess a lot of it is just a lot of that kind of thing is far more theoretical. We don't know for sure where that's going to go, where augmented speed, strength, that sort of thing. That's, we can do that now. You can make a cyber arm that that has greater strength now. So certainly that technology will even advance in the future.
It is kind of interesting, and having, hey, Brian, good to see you. You're right on time. But in sort of thinking about all of the technology that is around, there, even if you look at sort of the UI that they use in the computer stuff, it's wildly different from, kind of scene to scene, like there's just a lot going on there. So yeah, it would be, I would love at some point to connect with our friends and have them chat with us about some of this stuff, just to, and I'm certain if we dig a little deep and listen to their podcast, that they'll have gone into it ad nauseum and roll their eyes heartily. But yeah, that's an interesting question.
You can hear Ty roll his eyes.
I can, yeah. Right through his Twitter account. Yeah,
pretty much every day.
That is right. I love his Twitter. It's one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm. So where else was I going? Let's go back to page 72, which is social options. This whole chapter is full of stuff that could be used really well in the Expanse. Everything from a whole bunch of new social stunts, expanded relationships, creating networks of people you're connected to, which, I mean, that kind of thing comes, leaps right off the pages from the Expanse, especially book 7, 8, 9, when Naomi is creating the whole network of the resistance, right? All these people she has connections to, and establishing and keeping these relationships, building them, and then you have one faction that wants to do one thing and one wants to do another, and she has to please both of them to keep them both within the alliance. This could offer a whole lot of fun stuff to use. And I always love new stunts, so that's
absolutely. It is so easy to get lost in this stuff. It is so, I mean, and willingly get lost in all this stuff. I'm just looking at all of the different options here, but
right,
that's amazing. Yeah,
and companions.
Yes,
I love the idea of having companions in a game. Also, I mean, I don't think it actually goes into it here, but I mean, one of the things that are cool about having companion NPCs is that, like, if something happens to one of the regular player characters, it sort of gives someone a natural character to step in and play. Play that character if your character is badly injured or has to do something, or if you're the pilot I mean, this is something I should probably write a whole Ronin roundtable on this.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
About if you're the pilot in the game, because the pilot will often want to stay with the ship and have it ready to go, but sometimes there's nothing for them to do. They're just sitting there waiting.
That's right.
Having sort of a secondary player character that they could play to go off on the mission on the station or the planet or whatever would be kind of cool. So I'm veering off course here wildly, but
not at all. Honestly, we're right on target. Truly, that's and also just right in the same. This is our wheelhouse, going way off the book. Yeah,
right.
But no, this is great. So other things in the companion, the Modern Age companion that you think?
Yep. I can go on, and well. Those of you who have seen Beyond the Ring might recognize some of the stuff from Organizations, because we kind of borrowed some of this for creating colonies.
As evidence that this stuff works exactly as you describe. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. and evidence that you might see some of the other things elsewhere in the future. and with our own spin on them and some additions, some subtractions, it's not going to be exactly the same, but it'll work and
tailored
to the Expanse. Just like colonies, I mean, if your game is earlier in the setting, before the ring gates open or whatnot, having rules for an organization. It could be a corporation or a nonprofit, a group of journalists. I mean, I've always wanted to run a campaign about a group of freelance journalists who travel around the solar system and try to follow stories. I think that just could be a great campaign in and of itself.
That'd be fun.
So here would be rules for creating that organization beyond just the player characters. And
what pages are you on?
This starts on 79.
Yeah.
And then there can be antagonist organizations. So there might be, other, let's use the case of a group of journalists. There might be other, news organizations who are trying to shut you down, or maybe backed by certain governments or whatnot. Just all kinds of possibilities there. And I've gone over Beyond the Ring and, a number of times, but essentially it just it allows you to, plan actions like how is your group trying to grow? What are they having to defend against? And then you sort of do checks every month or so, depending on the scope of your campaign, basically, to determine how your organization is doing. And if something goes really poorly, that can be determined through a dice roll, or the game master could offer the opportunity for the players. That could be an adventure right there. There's an attack on one of your satellites. What do you do? So you go fix the satellite, but then have to deal with the people who are waiting there in ambush or whatnot. So
we have the great joy of having a friend of ours pop by. Old Stan, our buddy Stan. He pops in, and he is an artist extraordinaire, and he has created a piece. It is I love it, and it harkens back to an ad of the past. But I'm pulling it up right now.
Keep sharing.
I'm gonna do that. Yeah, you definitely want to see it because you make an appearance. So yeah. See, you just never know. You never know. Yeah, you do. You do indeed. Here, let me.
Is it something from Origins?
No, it's a drawing. Stan's an artist. He's he is. Let's see. Here we go. This should be.
Nicole took one picture of me at Origins, and I saw it the other day and was.
I saw it too, and I was like, I don't know that Ian's gonna want to. Here, we'll make that a little larger.
Is that me?
That's you. That's you.
I wish I was that skinny.
Yeah, no, Stan only brings out the best. So I love this. This is great.
This is an all-age game.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
That's stuff. Fantastic.
And kind of true. I mean, now, did you look at any of the Fantasy Age stuff that's coming, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we can jump. We can jump. I'm good with that.
I don't want to rush it, but yeah, no, not at all. But I mean, we're getting there, about 15 or so minutes. So, but yeah, thank you, Stan, for that very much. So, one thing that I want to do is have sort of a gallery of some sorts somewhere, so people can click through these and see what they are, or see who, all the things that he has done. There's so many. I was looking at them the other day. Very funny stuff. So thanks again.
Thank you, Stan. I appreciate it. It's always nice to be in a cartoon.
Yeah, it is indeed. All right. So now this was the one where I was like, okay, interesting. Fantasy Age. I could imagine there would be some people who, just like Stan's, illustration, would be like, what? Get your sci-fi off my fantasy, getting all
right.
upset.
Well, this sort of goes to the adversaries that I was saying, in the core rulebook. But when you're doing, like if you're doing something that's set, beyond the ring in one of the new worlds, or you're exploring a strange world or whatnot, coming up with the creatures can sometimes be just time consuming. I mean, I know when I was doing the little arc we did with the actual play. Just coming up with the creatures and then statting them out and everything just took me time. And I realized that there are a ton of monsters and things in the Fantasy Age bestiary that you could, with a little adaptation, but just basically, if you need a random alien creature, you could just pull the stats for, and maybe it doesn't look exactly like you could describe it a little differently than what's in here. But if you need some like fantastically huge beast, look in here at like, the Thunderlord.
Oh, sure.
Gigantic dinosaur thing. Which fits very well. If you've read, I'm not going to get into details. I don't want to do any spoilers, but the final novella, boom, there you go. If you want to do something like that, and it even has the special qualities that are appropriate for it. And if yours doesn't have a tail, get rid of the tail swipe, whatever. But you have stats right there. You have stat blocks you can use for different types of creatures. The threat rating on that is dire, so please don't go killing some PCs.
Right,
because I said you should use this monster. But it even just has a ton of regular normal animals. So if you should have need of those for anything, or again, easy enough to modify them just slightly for some analog version. But if you just want stats, there they are. Without having to take 10 minutes or whatever to do that. Because I admit, one of my least favorite things in the world is statting things. I love coming up with the idea for them, and even just generally what they do. I hate trying to figure out exactly how this thing does whatever.
How the maths,
the maths, and even just the special qualities and such. You got to. And we don't have all those in the Expanse rulebook either. There's all of these special qualities that you can apply to various large critters or critters of all sorts, that you can pull right out of this book, that makes it a lot easier. I take it back. There are some, but there's a bunch more here.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to mention is that in this world, when there is, we've got so much going on. And we are overtaxed, beyond. And if you can't make time to jump into those pickup games when you can, or put something together, the statting up of stuff gets a little cumbersome and time consuming. So it's great to have this resource just so you can pull it off the shelf and go, aha, here we go.
Yep. I completely blanked that we actually do have rules for creating creatures and Beyond the Ring, so I just undersold my own book. But even then you've got to pick and choose them, or roll them or what have you. Where this just you could just pull something right off the page here, and pretty much use it. Now, granted, a lot of them aren't going to work. You're probably not going to have Minotaurs or Merfolk or whatnot, but there are certainly some in here you could, Knife Hound, the Groot slang. Oh, definitely want to have a Groot slang in a game.
Absolutely.
I don't even know what that is. Or the Groy, definitely. That looks like an expansion.
Oh, my cousin Groy. Yeah.
Cousin Groy. Or even like the ghouls here look like something that could be a proto-molecule creature of some kind.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I like that. Yeah.
Could be you could use it for, people that were proto-molecule affected in some way. So yeah, lots of stuff there. And of course you've got lots of other age books that have creatures all throughout them. So that for me, that's a great resource if I'm coming up with a game, is to just be able to grab and go from various places.
I like that. So a couple questions for you. Unless is there more we want to more beasts we want to? Yeah. I'm curious. So as somebody who is So Stan says you can also use stats from a fantasy creature like a Minotaur, and reskin it with. That's right. Yeah,
Yep.
with that kind of the normal Expanse look. Yeah.
Yes, you could absolutely do that. Definitely. Of course, you want to pull any magical effects or anything from any of these, but again, it could be a proto-molecule thing too, something to consider. So
and I have definitely run into people who have a Minotaur demeanor. I'm just like.
Right.
He really strike me as a Minotaur.
We don't see a lot of humanoid creatures in the Expanse other than humans that are modified humans. Again, that's not to say that there's 1,300 worlds out there, and it's your story.
That's right.
So if you want to decide that there's a humanoid looking thing out there, then do it. Don't let. I wouldn't let the novels limit you in that way.
That's right. Yeah.
Own. So
yeah, and fairly clearly, and it is conceded that there are things that just haven't been discussed in
Sure.
over the course of the novels. Yeah. Where do you go? There are times where, because I'm a writer myself, but I'm a different kind of writer. And there are just times where I'm just like, I cannot put pen to paper. I cannot touch a keyboard. I'm just like, I'm over it for the day, or I'm in a spot. Like, where do you go for kind of recalibrating and inspiration to sort of draw, and help you get back into kind of writing form?
My bookshelf.
Yeah.
I wish I could. I could show it to you, but I finally got the bookshelves that I want. And first off, tons of games. Like sometimes I'll look at other games, and for inspiration on something. But also, I've got books of bestiaries and worlds and all kinds of things. And so I will generally go to my bookshelf and just sort of browse and pull something down that and maybe it even doesn't have anything to do with what I am working on. I'll go back to something that I loved from long ago, like Brian Froud's Fairies book, and just flip through it, and just things like that just recharge me and energize me.
Yeah, kind of a palate cleanser. Yeah.
Almost more than D&D. That was the book that made me fall in love with fantasy and fairies. And that's
here's what I was going to say. When you brought up that book, I have been looking at that because we're doing for Mutants and Masterminds Monday. We're focusing on Fae folk. It's Pride Month, and so we're kind of doing that as part of the deal. And I have loved that book. You just can't help but love it. It's just. It's amazing. And if so that's one book. Would you have another, or would you say like you have to have this on your bookshelf? Like it's got to be physical. Looking at it digitally just isn't going to do it.
I hate questions like this.
Too many to choose from.
No, yeah. See, that's the problem. And the problem is it depends. Okay, are you talking about for the Expanse? Because as you know, I do a few things.
You really do.
I work on different kinds of games, but
more so. I just want to. I want you to take us there.
Like I said, I think that's why I brought that one out, is because it's one that I I pull down anything that really speaks to me and that I just enjoy, that, enjoy the process of reading and looking at. Because it just kind of takes my mind somewhere else, makes me happier, releases some serotonin or what have you,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and then and then sometimes that lets my mind relax so that I can then find something else.
I like that. Hey, a quick question on the book on books of fairies and things.
Sure.
Wasn't there a book, and I just haven't dug deep enough, but it was sort of like Miss something something something, and it was like a book of like
Pressed
press.
Fairies.
What is it?
Yeah, I have it here somewhere. Yeah, book of Pressed Fairies. I forget what the
Yes,
yeah, I
yes.
forget
It
what
was
it
like
is.
Mrs. Something's book of
Lady
press.
Lady Lady Contington's
They,
book of Pressed Fairies.
that's it. I've just been racking my brain. Such a clever, amazing.
It was, I can't remember their names. It's actually sort of loosely based on the two young ladies who sort of started the fairy craze back in the late 1800s. But they claim to have fairies that lived in their backyard, in their back garden, and it became a big deal. I mean, it was like, there were articles in papers around the world about it, that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember when I first was kind of exposed to it. It's so like macabre, but also funny, and just it's a great one. Yeah. So one of the things that I think is kind of interesting, and as folks who are creators and who are in this space. Either they are creating for their table, or they're setting their sights on, doing some publishing. And we've got our own opportunities for folks to participate, like the Age Creators Alliance, or the Chronicle System, that kind of stuff. It strikes me, and maybe it's because we're just of a certain generation, but
Mhm.
everyone's got to have books on their bookshelf. I mean, like, it's just, I know the internet suggests, like, you don't have to have any of that stuff, but there's just something about having those books that you can kind of return to. Yeah.
And I admit I do most of my new book reading on Kindle these days, but
Fair. Yeah. Yeah.
but there are books still that I buy. I mean, like, I have all the Expanse books
Of course.
in
Yeah.
paperback
Yeah.
form. But partly because sometimes it's easier for me to look up something than it is on a Kindle.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. That tactile sensation, I don't think will ever go away. Especially, at least for certain books that are important to you, and there's a lot of books that have images, books, art books, and such. I don't think translate as well to a computer. It's just not
Yeah.
the same.
And there's just nothing like the focus you get from a book, because when you're on the computer, you've got 1,000 things popping off, and you've got people who are like, "Oh, hey," and it's very easy to veer off the course and think I was supposed to be doing something creative for myself or to recharge, and now I'm talking to Grandma about her biscuit recipe. Let's see. Jonesy says, if you have 1,000 or more books, you officially have a library.
All right, here. That's some of them.
Nice shelves. Those are great.
Yeah, those are my fairly new used shelves.
Alas, poor Yorick.
That's my skull collection up there. I've been getting a skull every Christmas the last number of years. So
nice. Festive. Yeah. Well, I love that, and I definitely love hanging out with you. Always a pleasure, and I think that it's very interesting how it's not interesting. It's wonderful how seamlessly you can incorporate other elements of age. One thing that we didn't really dig into was Blue Rose.
I should have gone there too. Well, I was about to say that with fantasy, with the bestiary, that there's a bunch of stuff in Blue Rose that would be great too. So really, that's what I'm saying. If you have any of the age books, take a look. You might have stuff that could be useful for the Expanse. So.
Oh, you most certainly will. Yeah, almost like it was designed that way. Hey, Ian, do you have anything going on that you want to share? Any kind of personal projects or pages or stuff you'd like people to know about what's cooking with you?
I do other side projects. If you want to see, what I'm looking at, you can always follow me on Twitter or Facebook, or I have my own little side thing, which is called Nevermore, which is going to be a Gothic horror role-playing game, American Gothic horror specifically. Lots of cool stuff coming out for the Expanse too. So unfortunately, I don't think I'm allowed to say anything about any of them specifically right now.
Nope. Nope, you're not. But so that's great. And then so we can follow you at the Ian Lemke on Twitter. You have a Patreon or anything or any of that kind of?
Yeah, I have a Patreon on, as well. That's primarily focused on the new game that I'm working on.
Well, that's okay. No, I mean, this is an opportunity for you to kind of flex a little bit. You spend some time with us, and we love it. So we want to be able to, share all about your stuff.
Yeah, it's the Ian Lemke or Nepenthe Games if you want to see about the game. And Nepenthe Games is on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So and the website. There's also the website.
I was literally going to ask you, how in the heck do you say that name? Nepenthe, is that? That's
Nepenthe. Yeah, Nepenthe.
Nepenthe.
Yep.
I was so close. And so then again, your Patreon is Nepenthe Games.
No, my Patreon's just me, Ian Lemke. I think that's how you find it. I don't know. It's under my name.
Nice.
Okay, Patreon, Ian Lemke, all one word.
Perfect. Oh, there we go. I see it. We'll drop that link in the chat, and check it out, folks. Ian, thanks for hanging out with us. Always a blast. We have a really, really good time. Looking forward to seeing what's coming. I would love to play in another actual play. I think you're a great GM. It's been a lot of fun. So with that, everybody, if you have some questions or some thoughts, or if you're like, I take issue with that Ian Lemke, send a note to let's play at greenronin.com, and I promise we will only ignore it for a little bit. And then make sure you're hanging out with us this coming Monday, Mutants and Masterminds Monday. It starts at 2 p.m. Oh, it's right in the same spot, just on a Monday. We just switch out the sets and change your skin suits, and here we go. And that's a heck of a lot of fun. And again, make sure you go follow Ian on Twitter, the Ian Lemke. And outside of that, have a great rest of your week. Stay cool, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.